Hello. In this program, I'm going to try to show you all the fundamentals of golf shot making that I've learned and applied in my own game over the past 30 years. We'll begin with the full shots, looking first at the much neglected preliminaries to swinging the club, and then at the action itself, step by step. Next, we'll put it all together in slow motion with various angles and with different clubs, again concentrating on what I consider the key fundamentals of a fine golf swing. After that, we'll look at 9 full shot factors that bear heavily on how well you play this game, with particular emphasis on controlling the flight of the ball. Next, we'll look at the basics of the short game, the scoring shots from wedge play right on through the putter. Finally, my lifelong teacher, Jack Grout, will join us to offer some thoughts on learning and improving at golf. Okay, let's go to work. Play all the different shots in the game of golf. The rules allow 14 different clubs, but fortunately, you only have to learn basically one swing. When I started playing the game of golf, I had an instructor, Jack Grout, who believed that all golf shots should be played with one basic swing. He felt like the grip should be the same for all shots, the aim should be the same for all shots, the ball position should be the same for all shots, and the basic swing arc and plane should be the same for all shots. The only variables were the length of the shaft, the loft of the club, and whether the club face was closed at address or open at address to produce a draw or fade. Otherwise, the golf swing was the same throughout all clubs. Now let me show you the one basic golf swing from 2 different angles with 4 different clubs. The 9-iron, the 5-iron, the 2-iron, and the driver. And you'll notice that the approach to the shot, the golf swing, the ball position, the arc of the swing, the plane of the swing is the same with all the clubs. The rhythm remains the same with all the clubs. The only thing that varies is that the stance is narrow with the 9-iron and gets wider as we move to the 5-iron, the 2-iron, and the driver. The ball is further away as we move from the 9-iron, the 5-iron, 2-iron to the driver. The swing becomes a little bit longer as the clubs progress, only because of the length of the shaft. But the golf swing and the approach to the shot remains exactly the same through all the clubs. And I think that's important in learning how to play the game of golf. When playing varying length shots and different types of shot, the average golfer has a tendency to want to change his swing for the shot. In other words, if he's got a short 5-iron shot, he takes a short swing. If he's got a long 5-iron shot, he takes a long, hard swing. Not the same swing. I think that you should try to use the same exact golf swing for every shot. If you want to play a longer shot, hit a 4-iron. If you want to hit a shorter shot, hit a 6-iron. If you want to hit a shot right to left, close the face slightly. If you want to hit a shot left to right, open the club face slightly. Now, there's a million different things that you can do to play different shots. But basically, you want to use the same swing, the same approach with all shots. Make sure that the ball is in the proper position in the stance and the swing is the same. Nice rhythmic golf swing with all shots. I think it'll help you. The grip is the simplest and easiest fundamental, and also the most important fundamental in the game of golf. A good grip allows everything in the swing to happen naturally. what is a good grip? What are the elements of a good grip? Well, let's try to do as many things as natural as possible. First of all, let's let our hands hang at our sides. Now, as the left hand's hanging down at my side, that's where I want the club to fit, just where the way the left hand hangs. My right hand, as it's hanging to my side naturally, I just bring it up as though I was shaking hands with somebody, and I put it on the golf club. That puts both hands on the club in a reasonably straight fashion. Whether you use an interlocking grip, an overlapping grip, or a full finger grip, I don't really think makes much difference. It's a matter of personal comfort on how you connect your hands. Now, the left hand is the strength of the golf grip. It has to be the support. So the golf club passes diagonally across the palm of the left hand. If you were going to hit somebody, let's just say with the back of your hand, you wouldn't flick them with your fingers. You'd hit them with the strongest part of your hand, and that's the back of your left hand. And that's what I want the golf club sitting directly behind that. Now, the right hand is exactly the opposite. The right hand is the part that applies the hit. So I want to use the fingers of the right hand, right across there. Now, why do I want to use the fingers? Well, if I were going to throw a ball, I wouldn't put it in the palm of my hand. I'd put it in the fingers of my hand so I have something to snap it. So the combination of strength and hit are the two elements of the right and left hand put together straight on the golf club to produce a good grip. The most common fault of a golfer with a bad grip is his inability to be able to get a complete release and a full extension at the golf ball at the time of impact. Well, he thinks that he needs more strength within his grip, and he tries to take his left hand and turn it left, what we call a motorcycle grip. And he tries to take his right hand underneath the grip. He feels very strong at this position, but in fact, it's a weak position because one of two things are going to happen. One is that to keep the club face straight, he cannot release the club because he has to keep his hands forward and never really applies his power. Or two, if he does release his hands and the hands want to return to a normal position, the club face becomes closed, resulting in a duck hook. The other side of the coin is the grip that is too weak, resulting in an early release and a loss of power, or if the hands are kept to the golf ball, results in an open face at impact. Remember, you want to keep your hands straight on the golf club so that you can apply the club face squarely on the ball in a square position at impact. It's just as though your hands were hanging to your side, brought together, separated and closed. That's a good golf grip. The best golf shot in the world really doesn't make any difference if it isn't aimed at the target. I want to show you a simple way of how I go about lining up a golf shot, and I think it'll help you. Is it easier to line up a 2-foot putt or a 40-foot putt? Well, obviously a 2-foot putt. Likewise, I'm sure it's much easier to line up a tee shot from 3 feet than it is from 250 yards. For the purpose of this exercise, let's use this tee. Now, that's illegal to do that during a round of golf, but when I am playing a round of golf, I try to pick out a spot, whether it be an old tee or a piece of dirt or a divot or some grass, something that's readily identifiable. And I try to draw a line from that spot back through the ball. So I'm sure you've seen me walk back behind a shot on television many times and do this, and what I'm really doing is I'm looking down the target line. I've picked a spot, I've got my ball, and I've got the target. And I try to draw a straight line between all those 3 spots. So let's see, this tee here looks, well, it's pretty much on line with the target. So I'm back here, I'll look at it, I'll walk up to the ball, and what I try to do is I try to take a parallel stance with the line that I've drawn, this imaginary line that I've drawn back through the spot, the ball, and the target. Now, of course, when I take a parallel stance, I then can get the ball right off the right spot in my feet, And of course, I do not want my lines converging. In other words, I do not want my feet working to the right of the target or at the target. I want them parallel, not converging. So here we are, parallel lines. We know the ball's in the proper place in the stance. I look up for comfort, and now I'm ready to hit it. Not too bad for an old man, huh? Tell me if you know this fella. He goes to the practice tee, hits the ball beautifully, stands up on the first tee, hits it 20 yards out in the trees, and spends the rest of the day changing his swing and his grip. When in fact, if he'd have gone through our little lesson here and picked out a spot 3 feet out in front of the ball on the practice tee, hit a few shots, getting adjusted to that, walking up to it on the first tee, picking out a spot and taking his parallel line, he would have been able to stand up on the first tee with confidence and down the middle and off to a good round and a lot of fun. The more things you can do right before you swing the golf club, the easier the game of golf becomes. Ball position is one of those fundamental elements that must be done correctly if you want to consistently hit good golf shots. I say the ball should be played off just inside the left heel. Why do I say that? Well, I think you have to understand the elements in the golf swing that make that happen. The first one is that the golf club travels on a path along the ground that, as the body turns and the club comes back, opens to the line of the target. It then comes back to the ball, and at one point during the swing, that club face is relatively square to the target, and then passes through and closes and moves off to the left. The second element in the golf swing is that the club comes up in the air as it comes on the backswing, and at one point in the swing, that club reaches the bottom of its arc, and just prior to the bottom of that arc is where you want to make impact with the golf ball. The club then continues on up again. So it's the convergence of those two elements which dictate where you want the golf ball played in your stance. And for most people, as you try to move to your left side, that position will occur just inside your left heel. The average golfer who places the ball improperly in his stance causes himself many problems. Let's just take, for example, the golfer plays the ball too far up in his stance. What does he do? Well, if he were corrected addressed, he would be here. Well, now he's got to move up. He changes his shoulder, his head position, and his body angle. And his results are probably that he'll swing outside and down across the ball and hit down on it very sharply and not get a very pretty shot. Now, the golfer who plays the ball too far back in his stance, just the opposite problem happens for him. His body angle becomes too far back, his shoulders become closed, and he swings on a much lower plane back here, and he swings more up on the ball and usually hits the ball high to the right. Or you might sometimes see the fella who swings out over the top too. So he causes a multiple of problems, but it's all caused by the original position of being back behind the ball. Obviously, the correct position is off the left heel. To try to help yourself with off the left heel alignment, think in terms of having a perpendicular line to the line of your target or where your feet are going. Try to place that off the left heel, and if you can do that and think about it shot after shot, I think your chances of being consistent are certainly much greater. How about that? I know a lot of golfers find what we've just been talking about pretty boring, but the hard fact is that grip, aim, posture, and ball position account for at least 80% of good shot making. Keep that in mind as we now get into the swing itself. Remember that what I'm going to show you next has to be based on solid pre-swing preparations if it's going to work effectively. The single most important element in swinging a golf club is a steady head. Without a steady head, all the other fundamentals go out the window. Fortunately, the good Lord put my head right in the middle of my body, as he did with most of you. Let's try to leave it there when we address a golf ball and when we play a golf shot. As we stand up over a ball, if our head is in the center of our body and we bend over slightly in the waist and where the club hits the ground is our address position, that is where we want to leave the head. Now, at that point, I like to feel as though I have a stake driven down through my head, down through my body, and into the ground. And I rotate around that stake when I play a shot. It sets up a slight hip-forward body angle, simply because my right hand grips down the club further than my left. And that body angle is in this position right here. Now, I try to maintain that body angle and my head position throughout the golf swing. So as I turn, you notice that my body stays at the same angle and remains in that angle throughout the golf swing. Now, why is that important? Well, if I move my head off the ball, I now get into a position where my body angle is back here, behind the ball, and really dictates that the ball should be in a different position. Likewise, if I move my head forward, it does exactly the opposite on the other side of the ball. If I start with my head in the wrong position, then to get back into the right position, I have to move my head forward. And really, you don't want to be moving your head because you have just too many variables. So let's try to keep our head right in one spot and leave it there throughout the golf shot. Most golfers don't even actually realize that they're moving their head when they make a golf swing. Good or bad, doesn't make any difference. Everybody has a tendency to move it a little bit. I think the average golfer, I'm sure you've seen him, he'll stand up to a ball and he not only can move it back and forth, but he'll move it up and down. And he'll give it a little bit of a, and he say, oh my gosh, he says, and he turns to his pro and he says, hey pro, what am I doing wrong? Well, the pro really doesn't have anything to start with because he's thrown all the fundamentals out of the window by moving his head all over the place. Now, when I was growing up, I found a method of keeping my head still, or at least Jack Grout found a method. He used to grab my hair. It was a little bit painful, but I learned to keep my head steady. And what Jack did was grab hold of my head, and I just hit shot after shot with him holding on to my hair. If you don't have somebody there to be able to hold on to your hair, I suggest that you practice with a shadow and have a shadow out in front of you, and you watch the shadow. And as you swing a golf shot, you watch and see that your head remains steady and doesn't go up and down or back and forth, because you can see that on your shadow. So let's review a second here. What are we trying to do? Well, we're trying to figure out a way to leave our head in the center of the body so the rest of the fundamentals of the golf swing are valid. And if you do that, you've got a good chance of playing some good golf shots. To play any sport, you should be lively on your feet. Golf is no exception. Foot action determines so many things within the golf swing that it's almost indescribable. Balance, timing, tempo, rhythm, all the things that are necessary in being able to do all the other things that you need to do in a golf swing. Your feet must remain lively and they must work. Now let me show you how Jack Grout taught foot action to me when I was a youngster. He started with the short golf clubs, and he told me to roll my ankles, roll my left ankle in, roll my right ankle in, roll my left ankle in, roll my right ankle in. And as the clubs got longer, he then allowed the heels to start to leave the ground, because he said he wanted to make sure that my hips remained level throughout the golf swing. So as the clubs got longer, I came a little bit off the ground with my left heel, a little bit off the ground with my right heel. Let me show you 3 golf clubs and 3 shots and how I think they should go with these clubs. This is a pitching wedge, And with a pitching wedge, my heels will pretty much remain on the ground. My right heel will come off the ground just a bit at the finish. Now, with a 5-iron, you'll notice that my swing is a little bit longer, my stance is a little bit wider, and my heel will get pulled just slightly off the ground on the backswing, my left heel, and my right heel a little bit on the follow-through. And now, with a driver, this is about as far as your heel should get pulled off the ground. Understanding foot action can be really a big help to you. The average golfer tries to make his feet either the dominant part of his swing or no part of his swing. Let me show you both of them. Here's the first guy who really thinks, boy, I'm going to make sure my feet work. Well, he's all over the place. The second guy, well, he doesn't understand foot action at all, but he's heard that you want to make sure that your feet are planted well on the ground. Well, obviously, neither fella is the fellow that you want to describe when you're hitting a golf ball. The feet must be active, they must be lively, but they're not overactive and they're not still. They must react with the rest of your body and flow. As your swing goes back, your feet are pulled back. As your feet go forward, your feet react with your body. That way, your timing, your balance, and everything else in the golf swing will happen together. How many times have you heard someone say, you're swinging too fast? Swing slower. When really what he's saying is that you're too tense, and tension is the real culprit of a fast swing. A fast backswing is generally caused by tension at the start of the swing. Well, what do I mean by the start of the swing? Well, as I'm standing up over the golf ball, if I have tension anywhere in my body, that is generally caused, for most people, through the grip. If I'm tight with the grip, then my arms become tight, then my shoulders become tight, then my upper body becomes tight, and if I'm tight everywhere else, then my legs are tight. Now, really what I want to do is I want to be very loose with all parts of my body. I want to be very relaxed. I want to keep in constant motion until I'm getting ready to hit the ball. And I want to make sure that everything's relaxed so that I can start the club away from the ball very smoothly and very relaxed. Okay, well, how do I do that? Well, I think if you have tension in your grip, then it transmits through the body. So I try to make sure that I grip the golf club just hard enough so that I don't have any tension in my forearms. If I start to have tension in my forearms, then I'm gripping the club too tightly. And at any point during the golf swing, if I start to feel tension in my forearms, then I've changed pressure and will not allow the golf club to release, and I'll start to be restricting my swing. That is obviously bad. So I want to make sure that I do what I call soft forearms throughout the golf swing. That means that my grip is nice and loose, my forearms are soft, and what it does, it allows me to keep the tension out of my whole body and thus promote a slow takeaway and a smooth golf swing. It worked. The average golfer. Well, I've got my hands tight enough, got my arms tight enough, my legs are locked. Now I'm ready to go, but I'm so tight I can't move. And he jerks it away. The club head must swing. And of course, to swing it slowly, it has to be without tension. So I see a lot of average golfers and I say, okay, keep yourself constantly in motion and feel as though the head of the golf club weighs a ton. And you just sort of, with all your effort, you're relaxed and then you sort of pull it away and let it swing away. And if you can do that, I think that you can get it with a nice smooth effort and get a nice release and swing without tension. So remember, if you take the tension out of your grip, it'll take the tension out of your body. If you can keep in constant motion, you have a good chance of making a nice, smooth golf swing. How's that? Once you start the backswing, make sure you complete it, for without a complete backswing, you'll lose your potential for power and accuracy. Through a great majority of the rounds of golf that I've played in my golfing career, one thought has really dominated my thinking, and that is complete the backswing. Why do I want to complete the backswing? Why is it so important? Well, there are two elements in the golf swing which we're all trying to achieve, and that's power and accuracy. And if we complete the backswing, we have a chance to deliver both of these simultaneously at the golf ball at the time of impact. First of all, power. Power is gathered by a turning of the body, a turning of the upper body and the lower body, and a completion of the backswing of the club going to a parallel position. At this point, the lower body uncoils first, bringing the upper body, my hands, the club, and the club head last behind it into the power position and delivering the power. Secondly, as far as delivering accuracy, I want to make sure that whatever line I take the club back on, I bring the club back approximately on the same line. So if I take the club, and for most shots slightly inside, back to this point here, which again in the same position I was in the power position, I want to release it right from that same position, right back down the same line, so that I can have both my power and accuracy happen at the same time. There are probably as many ways not to complete the backswing as there are golfers. But let me demonstrate three that I think are very common. The first one is the fella who doesn't use his body, doesn't use his hands. All he does is try to swing with his arms, and he swings. The second fella who tries to use his body, but he doesn't try to use his arms and tries to use his hands a little bit. And that fella is sort of trying to hit the ball from here, and he doesn't get it, he doesn't have anything, any power or accuracy. Now the third fella who says, well, I'm going to complete my backswing, you know, he's going to do that, so he's going to not use anything but his hands. So he gets back, he says, okay, I've got it. He says, how about that? Well, obviously, none of those three are what you want to do. What you want to do is make sure that you use all the elements of the golf swing, and that is, we want to use our hands, we want to use our arms, and we want to use our body back and through. I frankly prefer that one. Something that may surprise you, but I firmly believe, is that it's impossible to release the club at the top of the downswing too soon as long as you move to your left side. First of all, let me explain to you what the downswing really is. It's the application of power and accuracy through the release of the golf club from the feet up. Okay, now let me explain those elements to you. The first movement that you make from the top of the swing is moving to the left side. That's by probably planting the left heel. You move to the left side, it releases the lower part of your body, your upper part of your body, your arms, your hands, the club, and the club head is the last thing to really get going. Now, to get that complete release, you move and it generates the pull of everything here, and the club is pulled down into the hitting area. Now, do not try to keep your release from happening till this point, though, because if you take this point and take that to the top of the swing, you'll see it was here, and the club has been released from there to get to this point. So as you start down, the club is released at the same time. So as long as you move to the left side, you go ahead and release the club so that you can get maximum extension at the point of impact. And that is important because that's what you're trying to achieve, to get full power and accuracy at the moment of impact. Let me show you the two common faults that are made on the downswing. Not moving to the left side and not releasing at the top of the swing. First of all, let's take the fella who stands up to the ball and doesn't move to his left side, but releases from the top of the swing. What happens? Boom. It's what's called casting. And he looks something like this. Now, let's take the second fella. And that fella is a fella who does not release the club at the top of the swing, and he holds on to it. And what he does is he takes a nice backswing here, he holds on to the club, which throws him outside, and that throws him out over across the ball, resulting in either a slice or a pulled hook. So let's see what happens there. That doesn't look very good either. Now, let's try to show you what should happen. First of all, you obviously want to complete the backswing. Swing the club slightly to the inside. At the top of the swing, at this point here, we move to the left side and release the club. And it should look something like this. I frankly prefer that one. The follow-through, I said, could be a great teaching aid. Well, how can it be a great teaching aid? The golf ball's already gone. Well, let me show you. The follow-through is really a mirror of the backswing. In other words, if I'm followed through to here, if I draw that swing back, say, gee, that was the right position to be in here. If my follow-through is over here, and I draw that back, all of a sudden I found I'm outside going back. Or if my follow-through is out here, I draw that back, now I'm too far inside. If I stand here and all my weight is on my right foot, I say, how did I get there? How did my weight end up on my right foot? Well, I mirror that. It's probably because I have my weight on my left foot on the backswing rather than my right foot. So there's many, many different things that you can pick up from this. Right from the chip shot, right through the driver. If a chip shot, you only take it back this far, you want to take it through only this far. An iron, you take it back this far, you want to take it through this far. A full iron back to this far, through this far. Right up to a driver, which you take all the way back here, and you mirror it here. Obviously, the balance on the backswing's on the right foot. The balance on the follow-through is on the left foot. It can be a great teaching aid if you just take the time to use it. There are three kinds of false follow-throughs that the average golfer does. First of all, the golfer who doesn't think the follow-through is important at all. Secondly, the golfer who thinks that, well, I'm on the first tee, I want to make sure it's nice and pretty. So what does he do? Pretty, but useless. The third fella who thinks you hit the ball with a follow-through. And what does he do? Well, he sort of, you might say, forgets to make a backswing. Again, useless. The follow-through should be the mirror of the backswing. If you're going to make a backswing that is only this far, it should only go through this far. They should be the same. So when you're going to take a full swing, you should take a full follow-through. It should look something like this. Try it. I think it can be a great teaching aid to you, too. Whew, that went a long way. I bet you like to hit the ball a long way. Well, I do, too. So let me show you the elements in my swing that I use to hit a ball a great distance. For me, and I think for most people, a correct grip creates power. Why does a correct grip create power? Well, it allows you to get a total release of the golf club at the golf ball. I try to take as wide an arc as I possibly can going back, and wide an arc as I possibly can coming through. This gives me a very, very flat approach into the ball, and I hit it as much in the back of the ball as possible. 3, at the top of the swing, I am completely coiled. My legs are in a position to where they can really start to drive. My shoulders and upper body are turned. The club is in a full horizontal position. Now, from this point, I drive with my legs, release the golf club, uncoil my body, and release completely at the golf ball. All these elements help do the one thing that is necessary to create power, and that's make sure that this, the club head, moves fast. What happens to the average golfer when he wants to hit it 10 yards further? Well, the first thing he does is he gets all charged up, he gets all ready to really nail it, and he walks up to the ball. First thing he does, he gets the club in a death grip. Then as he's standing up over the ball, his arms lock up. Then his shoulders and upper body, and then his legs. And now he's really ready to hit it. And what does he do? He swings as fast as he can and hits it 40 yards offline. Well, obviously, that's not what you want to do. To hit a ball further, you must use all the elements in your golf swing to their fullest degree. What I mean is you want to make sure that you take as long and full a swing and allow yourself to complete your backswing, allow your legs to work, and allow to get yourself time to get a complete release at the golf ball. And how do I go about doing that? Well, when I get ready to hit a golf shot and I want to hit it a little bit further, I make a very conscious effort to be more relaxed and swing more slowly at the start of the swing and try to maintain that pace throughout the swing. After all, this, the club head, is what we want to move faster, not everything else. All the other things do is help that to move faster. So this is what I try to do. I walk up, I get nice and relaxed, make sure that everything is good and relaxed, and take as long and full a swing as I possibly can, but with a conscious effort to remain slower. And that was a long hit. So much for the basic components of the swing. Obviously, a big part of the game is bringing them all together in a smooth, powerful, and repetitive action. And that's what we'll look at now. We've slowed my swing right down so that you can really see what happens. And we'll also stop it momentarily for the maximum emphasis of key fundamentals. Okay, let's go. Very little tension at address. Then everything starts together on the backswing. Nice and smooth and unhurried, especially when you're going for a big one. My chin swivels to make room for a big upper body turn, but my head stays very steady. Left arm straight, but not stiff. Shoulders and hips coiling fully around a fixed axis. As the wrists are cocked by the weight of the club head, the hands are well under the shaft, supporting it fully all the way to the top. Notice how the back of the left hand and the angle of the club face remain constant, which means both are staying correctly square to the arc of the swing. Here's another good look at how the shoulders and hips turn together to their maximum coil at the top of the swing. the main source of power in the golf swing. Club head very low to the ground as it starts back, with the wrist cocking naturally and only in response to the weight and momentum of the club head. Notice the angles of the swing. My upper body and the club are at almost 90 degrees to each other at address, and they stay pretty much that way throughout the backswing. In other words, the plane of my swing remains perpendicular to the angle at which my upper body is inclined over the ball, which is exactly as it should be. No forward or up or down head movement as the downswing progresses. My head stays exactly where it was at address until well past impact. As soon as I'm moving to my left side, I begin releasing the club with my hands and wrist to be sure of achieving full extension at impact. The lowness of my right shoulder, hip, and heel through impact show I'm staying down properly on the shot, that I'm swinging under and not around myself. I watch the ball very closely, even when it's vanished. In fact, my eyes and head don't move until they're pulled around by the momentum of the follow-through. Notice the full stretch of the left side approaching impact and on into the finish, indicating a complete release at impact, your #1 goal on all normal golf shots. I like what I see here. Head back and down until well beyond impact. Hands supporting the club, body well balanced, indicating good rhythm and tempo. Notice again how the feet and legs initiate the change of direction, and how everything else follows their lead in the early stages of the downswing. But at the same time, you have to get that club head moving if you want to hit the golf ball hard and true. You must release immediately as you move to your left side. Notice how my left heel gradually rises as my weight shifts to my flexed and braced right leg, allowing me to turn fully with my hips remaining level. Then I quickly replant my left heel, which shifts my weight back to my left side as the first move of the downswing. A good full body turn underway again here, with the left shoulder and knee well behind the ball at the top, and the shaft pretty much parallel with the ground. Then as I start down, notice the quietness of the club. No jerks or bobbles. This allows it to properly mirror its backswing path through impact and beyond. Notice how, as they naturally follow the body turn, my hands in the club swing progressively more and more to the inside of the target line right from the start. This produces a fairly deep position of my hands at the top, which sets up the club head delivery from the inside. That's absolutely vital if you want to play this game well. As I reach the top, the club shaft is correctly at 90 degrees to my shoulders, which, because of my big turn, angles the club a little to the right of the target. Then watch how the body uncoils, with everything working from the ground up. Again, this is essential to hit from the inside. Watch the foot and leg action again, because it's the key to a very full turn while keeping the swing centered and well balanced. Even before the club head's gotten all the way back, you'll notice I replanted my left heel and am beginning to push off my right instep. You can really see here how golf's played from the insides of the feet. Left knee pulled well behind the ball, as the right leg remains a solid brace for the body's coiling action. This allows me to make a quick transfer of weight to the left side coming down, which pulls everything else around in sequence. Hips, then shoulders, then arms, then hands, and finally, the club head. Here again, you see how everything starts back together, with the hands and the club immediately swinging to the inside in response to the turning of the body. Then note how the club is released right from the top, allowing me to deliver it along that same inside path and also to reach full extension, left arm and shaft in a straight line at impact. Notice how freely my left leg moves as my body coils. There's hardly any weight on this leg at the top, which is a big factor in making a full body turn. Notice, too, how the right shoulder and hip are still behind and beneath the left shoulder and hip at impact. Another sign of complete club head release. From overhead now, watch how the club face gradually opens relative to the target line but remains constantly square to the turning upper body. Then coming down, these actions are reversed until the club head arrives momentarily square at impact, then closes again as it swings into the natural follow-through. All perfectly responsive to the rotation of the body, with no manipulation by the hands, wrists, or arms. This time, watch the path of the swing, the arc of the club head. As everything begins to turn away from the target altogether, right from the start, the club head swings progressively more and more to the inside, in sync with the coiling of the shoulders. Then, with the legs leading and a full release, the club head returns to the ball along the same inside path until at impact it travels momentarily straight along the target line. Then, once again, it swings to the inside on the follow-through. Watch the body action this time. Notice particularly how I'm turning my body and swinging my arms and the club always around a fixed axis. The back of my neck, the top of my spine stays centered from the start to finish, just like the hub of a wheel. If there's one fundamental common to all good golfers, this is it. The ability to stay centered, to swing every time around a fixed axis. Here's a look at the driver swing from 4 different angles simultaneously. Notice how golf is very definitely played from the feet up, not from the head down. My feet are the first thing to finish the backswing, and the club head is the last. Then coming down, that sequence is simply reversed. The feet work first, followed by the legs, hips, shoulders, arms, hands, and finally the club head. Just about every sport calls for lively feet, and golf is no exception. These are actually 4 different golf swings, but notice how consistent my tempo is. I try for a comfortable pace and rhythm, not too fast and not too slow. Most of all, though, I try to keep the tempo constant on every swing I make with every club in the bag, whether I'm on the practice tee or coming down the stretch with a chance of winning. Notice how I'm hitting the ball with the head of the club, not with my arms, not with my shoulders, not with any part of my body, but with a weight at the end of the stick, with a club head. Always remember that you can get distance only from club head speed, never from body force. So go ahead and really use that club head. Here I am with a 5-iron. And it's exactly the same golf swing, except that the shorter shaft automatically brings me a little closer to the ball, inclines my body a bit more, and produces a slightly less full backswing. Otherwise, no changes from the driver swing in mechanics, tempo, or any other element. And this applies, of course, with every club in the bag for all normal shots. Looking down the target line, and again you can see I'm a little closer to the ball and more inclined from the hips due to the shorter shaft. Other than that, though, I'm swinging exactly the same as I did with the driver, except on a slightly reduced scale. If there's a secret to winning golf, it's repeatability, which is why every good golfer strives to build one solid, fundamentally good golf swing. Notice the fundamentals still at work here, swinging as always around a fixed axis, and once again being sure to get a good proportion of my weight onto my right foot in the backswing. If you don't shift your weight away from the target going back, there's no way you can properly transfer it towards the target coming down, which will always cost you distance and accuracy. I try to keep myself as free of tension as possible throughout the entire swing with every club, and particularly in my hands and forearms. Get too tight in the hands and forearms and the tension will flow from there to the rest of your body. A good golf swing is one continuous flow of motion, and the more tense you are, the less smoothly and fluidly the motion can flow. Now down to the wedge, and again notice that nothing basically changes except distance from the ball, the angle of body inclination, and the progressively smaller scale of the swing, all created by the shorter shaft and the decreasing need for power as opposed to accuracy. The fundamentals are still there, coiling and uncoiling around a fixed axis, a nice smooth weight shift back and then forward, and full releasing of the club for maximum extension at impact. You'll notice as I swing through the ball here that the divot is pretty shallow, even though the short-shafted club makes for a much steeper or more upright swing path. That's because I'm still coming into the ball from the inside, which lets me release fully, which in turn delivers the club head along a relatively shallow arc through impact. And believe me, hitting from the inside is an absolute basic of good golf, whatever club you are using. Notice again here, even when power isn't important and the whole action has been scaled right down for maximum precision, how golf is still played very much from the ground up. Wedge, driver, or anything in between, you must be lively on your feet, must use your lower half properly if you want to hit consistently good golf shots. Fortunately, Jack Grout taught me that lesson at a very young age, and it's been a huge help to me ever since. The wedge from overhead. And again, it's the same basic golf swing, the same mechanics, the same tempo, the same effort to meet the ball squarely from the inside with full extension at impact. And now, as I make what looks like a well-balanced follow-through here, I'm going to quit talking and simply let the action flow for a few more minutes so you can look at it in relation to your game and pick up whatever pointers you might feel to be most helpful to you. Okay, here we go. Reversing ourselves back through the wedge, and then the 5-iron, and finally the driver.